Missing hard drives, mysterious burglaries, bungled timelines, and now we have brand new information from a government source. The Las Vegas security guard, who was the only eyewitness to this massacre from within the building, fled the country. Why did investigators let him go? Where did he go? We've got details in just a minute. We received this document from a confidential source this afternoon. It's a Customs and Border Patrol form, and it shows that Jesus Campos entered the United States from Mexico at the San Ysidro border crossing in San Diego County almost exactly to the hour 1 week after the Las Vegas shooting at the beginning of October. Now, the document does not reveal how long Campos had been in Mexico. Our source told us that Campos entered the U.S. at the same crossing in January of this year. At that time, he was driving his own vehicle with Nevada plates. And yet, in this document from a little over 2 weeks ago, Campos was driving what appears to be a rental car with California plates. Now, this information raises a number of questions about the Las Vegas investigation and the crime itself. Jesus Campos is the only eyewitness to the biggest mass shooting in modern American history. At the time he was in Mexico, the press was reporting that investigators thought Stephen Paddock, may have had an accomplice in these killings. Why did authorities allow Campos to leave the country just days after the shooting, while the investigation was still chaotic and, of course, ongoing? How did Campos, who reportedly had a gunshot wound to the leg from a high-powered rifle round, manage to travel to Mexico? Did he fly? Did he drive? Was his employer aware that he left the country? Were investigators aware? Did they facilitate the trip? What day did Campos get to Mexico? How was he able to drive back for hundreds of miles from the San Diego border back to Las Vegas? Why did he take a rental car instead of his own car? The union that represents Campos told us they were aware that he left the country. They claim it was a pre-planned visit. Why did it take a government leak for the rest of us to find that out? Why has MGM been so intent on controlling availability to Campos, booking him on the Ellen DeGeneres show and shielding him from press inquiries? Why did he appear with a co-worker in the Ellen interview rather than solo? Why did Ellen ask only leading softball questions? Why have so many people gone to so much trouble to shape the story of Jesus Campos? ABC spoke to Campos on October 4th. Was he in Mexico when they talked to him? Did they know where he was when they talked to him? What do we actually know about Jesus Campos? For example, is he really a licensed security guard? We checked today, and it turns out he's not registered with the state of Nevada's Private Investigators Licensing Board. Confused by this, we called the Clark County Sheriff to find out what license is required to be a security guard at a Las Vegas casino. The sheriff's office refused to tell us this. Jesus Campos is a victim, the spokesman said. We don't speak about victims. Naturally, we repeated the question. He became angry, he started yelling, and ultimately hung up on us. Which raises the question, why won't authorities answer basic questions about Jesus Campos? And here are a few more. Does Jesus Campos have a criminal record? Not attacking him. It's an honest and obvious question. What exactly did he do for the hotel? Had he ever had previous contact with Stephen Paddock? How exactly was Campos injured? Countless press reports claim he was shot in the leg with a rifle round from an AR-15 style rifle, probably a NATO 5.56 round. That bullet travels at 3 times the speed of a handgun round. It could easily destroy a man's leg and often does. Given that, how could Campos possibly have driven 700 miles from Las Vegas to the Mexican border and back less than a week later? And then there's Stephen Paddock, the shooter. We still know essentially nothing about him. Even the most basic questions about his behavior remain unanswered, such as, how did he get access to the hotel's freight elevator? How many other hotel guests had that access? Does surveillance video from the casino show Paddock entering the elevator alone or with others? Had he used that elevator before? If so, how often and why was he using that elevator? More broadly, had Stephen Paddock ever previously appeared on the radar of the FBI? Here was a man gambling millions of dollars and stockpiling weapons and ammunition. His name was all over federal databases. Nobody in law enforcement noticed him? We learned today that Paddock's computer is missing its hard drive. Why did it take nearly a month for investigators to tell us that? Did they just find out themselves? We don't know. What do we really know about Paddock or his family? His brother was recently arrested on child pornography charges. Was that part of a separate investigation? Was it related to this case? How many family members does he have exactly? Was he in regular contact with them? Did they have any reason to believe he was planning an attack? And by the way, where's his girlfriend? We could go on. The point is, this story gets murkier by the day. And that is the opposite of what is supposed to happen. It's impossible to know exactly what is going on with the Vegas shooting. We're not going to speculate. But it's obvious that there is lying and incompetence at the heart of it. Joining us now is former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. So Dan, why would investigators allow Jesus Campos, who again was the sole eyewitness that we know of to the shooting from within the building, to leave the country shortly after while the investigation is still going on? I'm baffled by that.
It's very strange, Tucker. I mean, think about it. There's really no guarantee he's ever going to return. He's not under arrest. He's not under any court order to stay in the country. I mean, they're limited legally what they can do to order him to stay, but it's just confusing. I mean, even I was thinking about this before we went on this segment here, and I'm thinking even the most innocent of explanations, right? I mean, he's a witness and a victim of one of the most horrific crimes in American history. Obviously, incredibly psychologically traumatizing. An innocent explanation, maybe he has family down there he's visiting, he needed some time. But to go to Mexico right after the crime, when you are the sole eyewitness to potentially the crime of the century, and as you brought up in the segment, you have a pretty significant injury, a 5.56 or 2.23 round to the leg, is really beyond perplexing. There's yes. No convenient explanation for it.
Well, I don't think it's possible. I don't think if you were hit with that round squarely in your leg, you'd be going anywhere because it would have destroyed your leg. But I don't mean to impugn the character of Jesus Campos. I don't know anything about the man. I felt sorry for him. I still do. He was injured.
Sure.
But the behavior of the people around him is so weird, and weird in a specific way. They're trying to control access to him. They're trying to control the story about him. They're clamping down on information about him and his actions. Why would they be doing that? Is it MGM doing that? What is going on?
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. I'm not, neither am I. I'm certainly not trying to impugn his character either. I mean, this guy was a victim of this crime as well. But that doesn't make the questions go away. The only explanation I can think of from the beginning, the genesis of all this, this fugue state we're in right now with this, because we had more answers about San Bernardino and Orlando in 24 hours than we have had in this case in weeks, is that there has to be some kind of friction between the parent company of Mandalay due to the potential for mass lawsuits and the Bureau, the FBI that's investigating this. There's no other convenient explanation. That explains a lot of the timeline discrepancies. Yes. That also explains, as you just said, and you're correct, I think this limited and controlled access to Campos, and a reason why the parent company may not have had a problem with him leaving the country for a couple days.
They may have facilitated it, abetted it. I mean, that would not shock me at all. But it doesn't explain the behavior of, for example, the Clark County Sheriff. Our producer, Charlie Cougar, called over there today to ask a simple question about licensing. This guy doesn't seem to have had a license as a security guard. Whatever. What are the rules?
Yeah.
And they were so defensive, and they yelled at him and hung up.
Yeah.
The spokesmen don't typically act that way when they're asked a simple question. What is that about?
Yeah, well, especially from a major media outlet. I mean, it's not like you were calling from a local blog. I mean, this is a credible media outlet that reports on stories like this all the time. And Tucker, we have to remember, this is, I get it. We all respect law enforcement's role in this. We understand. But this was a crime perpetrated on the American people. People are justifiably concerned about why it happened, and we have no answers. You have to expect there's going to be profound media interest in this. And yeah, answering like that doesn't help.
Right. I mean, I respect law enforcement, but if you want respect, behave in a way that earns it. Really quickly, this guy, it's not implausible he came, Paddock, to the attention of federal authorities. Gambling winnings, I think, are reported over a certain number. He was churning a lot of money through the casinos. No one's asked exactly, had he come to the attention of federal authorities? I know he hadn't been arrested, but do you think that's plausible that they knew who he was?
Yeah, I mean, if once you deposit $10,000 or more, you have to fill out a currency transaction report at a bank. He may have had suspicious activity reports in banks as well. I don't think this guy was a ghost to the federal law enforcement system. I think as information comes out, you're going to see more about that.
I agree with that, and I think there's some butt covering going on, just a guess. Dan, thank you.
Yes, sir.